So if I expand this a little bit more, it can be seen. You'll see all the list of all the assertions that you can use, all the assert methods you can call. And one of those is going to be called fail. And notice that there's a fail here with a parameter, so it's actually calling that method there. So if you ever want to inquire what's available, you can just walk through these packages here and then look inside of each class and figure out what methods are available. Okay, so we're also going to pull down from here org JUnit after and before. So these annotations are also stored inside of here. You can see the after, before, and the test. So those are the annotations stored in each one of those classes. Okay, and so that's the basic structure of how you'd set up a JUnit script. What I'm going to do is look at another one where I already have some code in place and walk through some of what it would look like here. So the first thing we want to do is we're going to import everything. We also have a package. Before I forget, there's the package itself that we created called test. Then we'll import a series of libraries it makes available to us. So we have the, as we just saw, the assert, and also in this class I have a before class method which fires before this entire class has been created. So this will fire before him, but there's nothing in here that I'm using in this type of a script at the moment. There's also an after class which will execute after this class is complete to do any cleanup work. But I'm not going to use either one of those. Okay. I do want to get a handle on WebDriver. So with using WebDriver, I need to pull down those libraries. So the first thing I want is to use WebDriver. So I'm going to declare a handle to WebDriver. So I create a private variable of WebDriver. I'm going to just name it driver. That uses the org OpenQA Selenium WebDriver package. So we're going to get that. Inside of here, you'll see the WebDriver class is available. So that's where I'm getting an access to it. Okay. Next thing here is I'm going to have my before setup. So again, this setup method runs before every test method. And so I want to load, in this example, the Firefox driver. So the Firefox driver here can be found in this folder under Firefox, this package. You'll see the Firefox driver class there. So we declare that. So I'm going to load in one, so I'm going to say driver equals new Firefox driver. Then I'm going to use some of the management pieces. So I want to manage the timeouts and set an implicit wait of 15 seconds. And that's how long it will, the implicit timeout will wait for to find a web element. And next I set the page load timeout, and so I'm using 60 seconds before the timeout will occur waiting for a page to load. Then I'm going to maximize the browser window so that WebDriver can find all the elements on the page that we're looking for. And the next thing I'm going to do is get access to my website. In this case, I'm using like Amazon.com. So you put your URL to get to where your application is at or the website you're looking for. Okay, and so again, this runs before every test method. So now our after, this is the teardown. It runs after every test method. So in this case, I want to close the browser and WebDriver. So I declare driver.quit, and I use the quit method. Okay. And so, let's close these a little bit. Then inside the test script itself, I'm going to look for the search drop-down web element. And so I'm going to use the driver, and then I'm going to call the find element method. And the find element method accepts a by object. And the by object can have several different method types. In this case, I'm going to look for an ID of a search drop-down box. And so let me pull up a browser just so we can look at the Amazon.com site. and let that load. And I'm looking for here is this drop down. Okay. And so in the code, I'm looking for the search drop down box. So I want to look for it by ID. Okay. So I declare the ID. So this is the ID attribute of the web element itself. So if I inspect that element, we'll see that it has an ID of search drop-down box. Okay, and then I want to get, because that is a drop-down, I want to use the select. So in order to obtain a select, first we need to get a web element type. So I declare this variable named drop-down, and the driver find element will look for the element by its ID, and it will return back a web element. So I'll call this one drop down, and then I'm going to pass it to a new select object and pass the drop down web element to the select constructor, and it will return me back a select object that I'll call the search drop down box. Okay, now I want to select by the visible text. You could select by another option or a value itself, but in this case I want to use the visible text. So I want to look for what I'm actually seeing on the screen, which is books. So I'm looking for books. So by the visible text, so I'll select by this visible text, and I'll pass in the parameter books. The next thing I want to do is find the search box. So I want to see that text box. So again, I call driver find element. This time I'm going to by ID, and this is the ID of this text box here. And I'm going to get for that search text box and store it in a new web element, so a new variable for that text box. Then I want to type into that search text box. So in order to do that, I'll use the send keys method, and I'll type in the text that I want. Okay, so use send keys in order to type. The next step is to get the button, this button right here, the go button.